Welcome to The Creative Influencer, where we discuss all things creative with an emphasis on influencers. The Creative Influencer is hosted by John Pfeiffer. John is an entertainment attorney in Santa Monica, California, who represents influencers and other creatives.
This is episode 4 of the 5th season of the Creative Influencer podcast. Today we interview Joi Wade. Joi is a YouTuber, an entrepreneur, an author, co-host of a travel podcast, a recent graduate from the University of Southern California, all on top of a day job. In Joi's words, her YouTube channel and content sit at the crossroads of between beauty, education, and side hustling. Her channel has evolved as she's evolved as a person, especially now that she navigates the transition from college to adult life. Joi shares some of her tricks for managing all of these projects and how she lives by the mantra, if you have an idea, just try it. Enjoy. I am joined today by Joi Wade. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So I'm going to set the scene. You are a YouTuber, an entrepreneur, an author, co-host of a travel podcast, recent graduate from University of Southern California, and you have a day job. So you are busy.
I forgot about half of those things.
Well, first I want to ask you about your company. You are an entrepreneur. It's Joiful Bee. Tell me about it.
Yes, so Joyful Bee is basically my baby that I've been running for the past year. Joyful Bee is a hair care company that makes unique tools and accessories for women with curly hair. Joyful Bee launched in February in 2020. I was super excited, and then a pandemic happened right after, so that was awesome. It actually kind of worked out because people couldn't go to the hair salon, so they were looking for solutions that they could do their hair at home. And Joyful Bee kind of just was a result of me being in the influencer space and making a lot of content around hair care and seeing that there was room for me to make a product. I'm also I think I have so many different interests. So when I have an idea, it's really hard for me not to at least give it a try. So I'm still in that giving it a try phase, but it's been going really well.
And we will come back and do a video promo so you can see the hair, but you have great hair, by the way.
Thanks.
So I mentioned that you're also an author. You wrote, You Got Into Where? What's that about?
Yes. So this goes back to me liking to try a bunch of different things. So back in 2016 is when I self-published this book. And You Got Into Where is a guide for high school students navigating the college admissions and scholarship process. And I wrote this book after going through this process as a first-generation college student and actually landing a few full-ride scholarships. And like I said, I have a YouTube channel, so I was documenting that whole college admissions process on my channel. And the questions, comments, DMs, and emails kind of got really overwhelming, where I started to talk about the same things, write the responses were becoming very mundane. I was like, you know what? I need to make this into some sort of guide that I can provide to people who have questions. A one-pager wasn't enough when I started writing out everything you have to know. And so it eventually was long enough where I was like, this could actually be a book. And so I self-published that book in 2016, like I said, right before I went to college. It was actually a great experience, just, learning and trying new things. And I spoke at different conferences and did a whole bunch of things around the book because I found through writing the book that I was actually really passionate about just education and, always having, your brains to back you up.
Right. So do you have other books in the works?
Oh my gosh. In my head, I do. In my Google Drive, I do. I have some outlines, but nothing coming in the next year because so many other things are going on.
And one of those other things is you're co-host of a travel podcast And what I read was that the target audience is Black women. Tell me about the podcast.
Yes, so I can't even begin to talk about the podcast without shouting out my co-host and best friend, Janelle. Basically, we have been friends since middle school. And when it was time to go to college, we wanted to have something that we did together, kind of to stay in touch and also document our experiences traveling as young Black women. Her and I just love traveling, and she's studying I don't know, she's getting her PhD in like oceans and fish and like something kind of weird because I'm not into science, but so she travels a lot for that. So she gets to document her experiences on the podcast. I document different things that I'm doing. And I think the main thing I like about the podcast is that it's kind of more just a fun place for us to regroup, be friends, and also interview people who are traveling. I think during the past year when people weren't traveling, I still loved hearing about people's experiences so I could plan the next trip. So that's a little bit about the podcast.
And you are a world traveler. How many countries have you visited?
Yeah, okay. I actually don't know the number, but it's quite a few. I've been to many countries in Europe because I actually did a study abroad program there in college. I lived in Brazil for a month in college as well. I've been to Thailand.
The last number I saw was over 25.
Yeah, I think it's crazy because I haven't traveled as much during the past like year and a half. I feel like I haven't been anywhere because I'm just like, right. I can't wait to like go places again. I feel like I haven't been anywhere, but I definitely knocked some places off my bucket list pre-pandemic.
So what's your favorite country you visited?
Yeah, this one's hard. I think I mentioned Brazil earlier. I think Brazil was definitely a favorite because I learned something new literally every place I went. I felt like there's so much history that I didn't know about that country, especially the African roots that are in the north part of Brazil. There's so much to learn about the history of the people, the different ethnicities that are there, and there's just so many parallels that you can make to African American culture, African culture, and Afro-Brazilian culture. So I think that was just so fun to learn. And also they have great nightlife and great food, and it's just really fun.
Transitioning, and we'll go, when we talk about your YouTube channel, we'll talk about the videos you did about college acceptance. But you are a recent graduate of USC, University of Southern California, 2020. What was it like to graduate during COVID?
It was a mess, honestly, but I would say for me, I was just happy to virtually graduate, get my degree. Like I said, I was a first generation college student. So I spent that time, even though our graduation was virtual and there was eventually an in-person one, I spent that time just with my family and celebrating that accomplishment. And I think that's what I would have done if there was restrictions or not. I would have spent that time with my family. I think the only thing was my family that's never been to California was kind of bummed they didn't get to go to LA. But for me, I was happy either way. I was just happy to be done with classes. I think senioritis is real, where you just like you're just so ready to graduate. And I just was just super happy to just be with my family.
Senioritis on Zoom.
So senioritis on Zoom, yes. Lots of Zoom calls. Zoom is just, to take a class on Zoom is like a very unique experience.
Yeah, I teach a class at Pepperdine, and I taught 2 semesters on Zoom. And it was just, you're right, it was a different experience. Completely different experience. Now, you said some of your family were looking forward to coming to California. Where did you grow up?
Yeah, I actually moved around a lot growing up, but I'd say where I'm from is probably Pennsylvania. I say probably because I've spent the most years there. But most of my family's from Maryland. And my family actually moved around from Pennsylvania. I went to high school in Atlanta, Georgia for a little bit, and then obviously went to school for university in California.
So you did move around. Now I want to shift to your YouTube channel because I have a bunch of questions about that. You describe yourself as a beauty YouTuber, but your videos are more than that. If you were to re-describe yourself, how would you describe your YouTube channel?
Yeah, this is a really good question because I've had my channel so long, and it wasn't through adulthood. It was as I was growing up, my interests kind of changed. So I would mainly describe myself as the crossroads between like beauty, education, and like just like side hustling.
Yeah.
I'd say those like there's not one thing that I've ever stuck with. I feel like my channel has evolved as I've evolved as a person.
Now, well, it's on your channel that you started your channel when you were in middle school. Did your mom know you had a channel in middle school?
Oh, yes. So my parents knew, but I didn't tell any of my friends because YouTube wasn't cool back then. YouTube definitely wasn't cool back then. I don't think I started telling people until I had like 10,000 subscribers or something.
And then I went back to check. The earliest video that's still up is when you were a freshman in high school. You are "What's in my book bag?" And I know what was in your freshman book bag. It's evolved since then. But in 2016, you did a lot of college admission videos and several videos about you getting accepted. Where were you all accepted?
Yeah, so I did a lot of those videos. I was accepted to USC, obviously, which is where I attended, New York University, the University of Miami. I applied to Temple University because, like I said, I live in Pennsylvania, so I wanted to get one Pennsylvania school in there, and I think I applied to UPenn too, and they rejected me. So shout out to UPenn.
Well,
I'm glad I didn't go there because I feel like I needed like USC is such a vibe. If you've been there or you know students, I feel like it fit me way better.
Well, it's to your credit, you did post the video of you not getting into the Wharton School, which I thought was relatively courageous, that you had both the highs and the lows. So kudos to you.
Yeah, I had to keep it realistic. I feel like college admissions is such a fragile point in like a high school student's life. And if you're watching other people on YouTube and you're like, oh my gosh, like they got everything they wanted, that's going to be a letdown.
Right. Yeah. And no, I don't know anyone that got everything they want. There's always the dream school that you didn't get in.
Right.
Now, your latest videos, your last video was how I budget, save, and invest my money at 23. So how do you budget, save, and invest your money at 23?
Yeah, I'm actually like a really big money nerd. Thanks to YouTube, like I watch so many finance YouTubers. Like I think Graham Stephan is one of the biggest ones, but CNBC Make It. Like there's so many fun series that make, I think, learning about finance a lot better when you just like, I don't want to be an adult and like deal with this. But my main thing is just making sure that my favorite thing to do is just have auto transfer set up so I don't spend money that I don't have. So as soon as I get my check, things get auto transferred into savings, things get auto transferred for where my rent comes out, and just keeps things very simple so that I'm not stressing over like the small thing. It's more like I made a plan, so let's stick to it and let the automations do their thing.
Yes. Transitioning, you have a recent video, owning a small business is hard. Your top struggles as a 23-year-old entrepreneur. So what are your struggles as a 23-year-old entrepreneur?
Yeah. On one side of the coin, they're self-imposed. As we talked, I do a lot of different things at once. And right now I have Joiful, which is my product business. I still do the traditional influencer thing with, working with brands, just posting content. And I do work full time. So that sense of the time management is very self-imposed. But I think the biggest struggle is learning how to be a business owner when you're young. I feel like a lot of things in entrepreneurship are just figuring out, oh, marketing costs this much, buying inventory costs this much. A lot of things surrounding money, most apparently. But I think another big lesson is, you can't do everything alone. I feel like creators, everyone starts out doing everything by themselves, but that leads to burnout, and it doesn't have to be that way. So one of my biggest lessons, just running my small business and also being an influencer, is bringing on help. I've actually have had interns or assistants since my sophomore year of college, helping me along the way. So definitely everything has not been by myself or one person show. I do not like being burnt out, so I definitely outsource work to people like video editors, for Joiful, customer service help and things like that, because I definitely cannot do it all.
Yeah, that is a lesson that it takes many people decades to learn. Speaking from experience. So you also have a recent video on how to be productive and get things done, which it sounds like you're getting things done, but what's your system?
Yeah, I would say I definitely, thinking back to my what's in my book bag video, I definitely had a planner in there. And I still use planners to this day. Right now, my favorite system is I start with a really long to-do list, kind of like a brain dump of everything I think I need to get done. Because I feel like sometimes there's stress around oh, I can't remember what I said I needed to do, and then you remember it right at the last minute. So I always start the week off with a brain dump. And then I look at a weekly view of my planner, and I move those items from the brain dump into individual days. And then I don't have any more than 3 to 5 items for each day, because it's unrealistic really for me to get more than 3 things done on that list. So I break it out in chunks so that I know that 1, I know everything I needed to get done was accounted for, and 2, I know that I'm not going to have to do it all at one time.
Shifting gears entirely, there's a video on 5 things I wish I knew before college. What are the 5 things you wish you knew before college?
Yeah, so this one is actually hashtag sponsored, but I chose that topic because I felt like it was a great kind of closing to a lot of my college content. A lot of things I wish I knew before college revolve around kind of the workload, and just how much you need to do on your laptop. I feel like that was just such a big surprise for me. I thought in high school, I feel like you have binders and you have everything on paper. Yeah. And then just getting to college, it's nope, you have syllabi, you have to stay organized and all that stuff. So I feel like that was a big change. Also, another thing before college that I wish I understood was that your social life just goes through a whole whirlwind, because 1, you just have different network bubbles, essentially, whether it's people in your major, people you live with, and it's hard to balance, and maintaining relationships is a really big thing for college, especially if you're paying a lot of money to go to a school for the network. It's right. An extra level of pressure, because you're okay, I paid to be around all of these great people, professors, so now you have to maintain those relationships.
When you're creating a video, who is your target audience?
Yeah, I would say my target audience are young Black women who are ambitious and kind of figuring out their transition between college and adulting.
I would just say, in watching a ton of your videos, your audience may be women, but the advice I think is cross-culturally. It's
Yes, definitely. I'd say I found that like tons of different people watch my videos and reach out to me. I would say the beauty of YouTube is, there's tons of people who talk about the same things, and audiences kind of look for someone they can relate to in that sense. So there might be 10 people talking about, managing their money, but they look for someone whose journey they can relate to.
You're obviously, in watching the videos, you're obviously comfortable in front of I can't talk, in front of a camera. How do you feel about in front of a live audience?
Yes, I love talking. I think I've always been super talkative since I was young, always the person talking the most in class. I've started to stretch that like muscle in college. So right around, I mentioned the You Got Into Where book. That's when I started like, oh, like, can I actually give people advice in person, or am I just like a YouTuber who has to be behind camera? So I kind of weaned myself on, like I started doing small like events, talking to high schoolers. I started doing like one-to-one mentorship. And then eventually, toward the end of my college career, I actually hosted a workshop at USC in front of 300 high school students. And that was scary because high school students are mean and they're actually nice to me. But like my whole thing was with that was just like, be relatable. Like, you're very close in age to these people. So right. I think it went well in that sense, but it was definitely something I had to grow into, but it's more of, just like to keep things conversational and be myself. And I think it goes well when I just lean into that.
When you finish a video, can you predict the success of that video?
I cannot. I'm actually like, don't see myself as like the master YouTuber. I can attribute certain things to like, I don't follow all the best practices of being an influencer. For example, most people say, oh, if you have a YouTube channel, stick to one niche and like stay in one lane. From this conversation, I have not stayed in one thing my whole life.
No.
So I have to accept that, okay, a lot of my subscribers came from beauty videos. So if I post a beauty video, it's going to get thousands of views. But I also want to share about my business, and that's new. So I'm going to have to build up people who are interested in that.
Right. What's the biggest challenge you face when you're creating your content?
I would say my biggest challenge is one was editing, because I would always rush through editing because I had other things to do. So now that I've outsourced to my editor, I can really take that, like, that is off my plate. I felt like I was just rushing through edits all the time. Even though I know how to do it, I just didn't think I was doing it to the place I wanted my channel to be. So definitely editing. Also consistency is what like every influencer talks about, but it's, especially when I have other things going on, like, I don't know the last time I posted like a video every week for like more than 3 months. Like, but it's okay. Like, I've accepted that and I don't beat myself up about it. I think it'd be different if I was like really getting upset that I missed videos. I've just accepted that that's not my place on YouTube right now.
Right. Okay, so I want to completely shift gears and go 73 questions a la a Vogue interview. You know how they do the 73 questions? I don't have 73, but I have a bunch of rapid fire.
Okay.
Okay, what question would you most like to know the answer to?
Oh my gosh, this is like, okay, let me think.
See,
what is my dog thinking right now? Like, what is my dog thinking? Like, does he hate me? Does he love me? Oh my gosh.
Okay, I'll make this one easier. Favorite food?
Italian pasta.
Favorite cocktail?
Margarita.
If you had 30 minutes a day to do anything you wanted, what would you do?
Go swimming.
What TV channel doesn't exist that should?
Like a YouTuber reality channel.
Favorite movie?
The SpongeBob movie.
Your guilty pleasure?
Eating, like going to restaurants, like different restaurants around the city.
What is something that your fans would be surprised to learn about you?
That I love designer like purses and like clothing.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
When people aren't specific, like with what they're asking you. Like, I don't like when people aren't just direct. I don't like, hey, how was your weekend? I'm like, you don't care how my weekend was. Just what do you know?
That's probably true. What's one talent you wish you had?
I wish I could sing or dance really well.
Have you ever been starstruck?
Yes, I met Issa Rae and I was like, what do I do?
Say hello. If you could make one rule that everyone had to follow, what rule would that be?
If you have an idea, just try it.
Last set of questions. What are you working on right now that we haven't talked about?
Black Friday promotions.
And then my last question, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me at joiwade.com, and all of my socials and everything are linked from there.
Thank you. This has been fun. I'll come right back to you.
That's it for this time. If you enjoyed our podcast, please write a review on iTunes and tell your friends to subscribe. If you have any questions about influencers or suggestions for future episodes, email them to John at Pfeiffer@pfeifferlaw.com. Thank you for listening.